The Great Hall of Nexus Prime was the largest room Daniel Carter had ever seen. It stretched so far that the ceiling disappeared into darkness above him. 12 massive chairs formed a circle around a small platform in the center. Each chair held a being from a different world. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had shapes that made no sense to human eyes. And all of them were looking down at the single human standing alone on that platform. Daniel was 53 years old. He had gray news of the defeat spread across the galaxy like a disease. On Nexus Prime, High Chancellor Voreth refused to believe it at first. His Kryn warriors were the finest soldiers in the Conclave. They did not lose to primitive species from backwater planets, but the survivors told stories that could not be ignored. They spoke of human ships that appeared from nowhere. They spoke of weapons that passed through shields like they did not exist. They spoke of a fleet that should not have been possible for a species that still used rockets and chemical fuel. "They tricked us, Ambassador," Dex of the Veltheri said. The crystal wings on his back trembled with fear. "They hid their true power. They let us think they were weak." "For how long?" asked Ambassador Cora of the Zoreth. Her stone face was cracked with worry. "How long have they been building in secret?" No one had an answer. The Conclave had watched Earth for 50 years. They had seen everything the humans did on the surface of their planet, but they had never thought to look beneath the surface. They had never imagined that a young species could be so clever, so patient, so dangerous. Vorath called for war. He demanded that the full might of the Conclave be sent to crush the humans once and for all. The other ambassadors agreed. What choice did they have? If word spread that a primitive species had defeated them, their authority would crumble. Other conquered worlds might rebel. The Conclave could not afford to look weak. They sent a fleet of 300 ships, the largest fleet ever assembled in the history of the Conclave. Ships from all 12 species, carrying soldiers and weapons, and enough firepower to destroy a star. The fleet never reached Earth. The humans were waiting for them at the edge of their solar system. Not with dozens of ships this time, but with hundreds. Black warships of all sizes, from small fighters to massive carriers the size of small moons. They had been building in secret for longer than anyone could have guessed. The Battle of the Outer Rim lasted 3 days. When it was over, the Conclave fleet was scattered and broken. Less than 50 ships managed to escape. The rest were destroyed or captured. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Conclave had lost a war, and the humans did not stop. There, Lieutenant Megan Torres led her strike team through the streets of Veltheri Prime, the Crystal. Towers of the alien city sparkled in the light of 2 suns. It would have been beautiful if the streets were not full of terrified aliens running for their lives. "Remember your orders," Megan said through her helmet radio. "Military targets only. No civilians. We are not here to kill. We are here to send a message." Her team moved with precision. They had trained for years in simulations, learning how to fight in alien cities with alien gravity and alien atmospheres. Now that training paid off. They destroyed weapons depots and military bases. They captured enemy soldiers and treated them with respect. They did not burn or loot or murder. The Veltheri had expected monsters. Instead, they found soldiers with rules. This confused them more than anything else. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Human ships appeared in the skies of every Conclave world. Human soldiers landed and took control with surprising speed, but they did not act like conquerors. They did not enslave or torture. They simply took away the weapons and left the people to their lives. "Why?" asked a captured Zoroth general. "Why do you not destroy us?" "We voted to enslave your entire species. We would have killed millions of your people." The human soldier guarding him shrugged. "Because we are not you." On Earth, Dr. Kevin Shaw prepared a message for the galaxy. He was 70 years old, a scientist who had spent his life studying the stars while secretly helping to build the weapons that now protected his world. Now he would explain to the Conclave what they had done wrong. He sat in front of a camera and spoke in a calm, steady voice. His message was broadcast on every frequency the humans could reach. It went to every Conclave world. It went to the ships floating broken in space. It went to Nexus Prime itself. My name is Kevin Shaw. I speak for the people of Earth. I want to tell you a story. He paused and looked directly into the camera. Long ago, our ancestors lived in caves. They were small and weak. The world was full of predators that wanted to eat them. They should have died. But they did not die. They learned to make tools. They learned to make fire. They learned to work together. And slowly, over thousands of years, they became the dominant species on their planet. He leaned forward. We have fought wars that killed millions of our own kind. We have survived plagues that destroyed half our population. We have come back from disasters that should have ended us. Every time the universe tried to kill us, we found a way to survive. That is what we are. We are survivors. His voice grew harder. 50 years ago you found us. You watched us from afar. You saw our rockets and our satellites, and you thought you understood us. But you only saw what we wanted you to see. Beneath our cities, beneath our oceans, beneath the ground you never thought to scan, we were building. We were preparing. Because we knew that one day, someone would come to take what was ours. He stood up from his chair. You voted to enslave us. All 12 of you. Not one voice spoke in our defense. Not one species showed us mercy. You looked at our children and saw future slaves. You looked at our artists and scientists and dreamers and saw animals to be used and thrown away. He pointed at the camera. And now you understand the truth. We are not prey. We have never been prey. We are the children of survivors, born from a world that tried to kill us every day of our existence. You made an enemy today, and we will never forget. We will never forgive. But we will also not become what you are. We will not enslave. We will not destroy without cause. We will show you a mercy you never showed us. He sat back down.
Disarm.
Accept judgment for what you did, or continue to fight and watch your civilizations fall. The choice is yours. The message ended. Across the galaxy, billions of alien beings watched in silence. Some were angry. Some were afraid. Some were already planning how to surrender. The age of the conclave was over. The age of humanity had begun. The great chamber had been built in only 3 months. It stood in the heart of Geneva, a city that had once been known for peace and diplomacy among human nations. Now, it would serve a greater purpose. Now, it would be the place where the fate of 12 alien species would be decided. Admiral Lisa Monroe sat at the highest seat. Around her sat the leaders of Earth, presidents and prime ministers and generals who had kept humanity's secrets for decades. Below them, in a circle of smaller seats, sat the ambassadors of the conclave. The same 12 beings who had voted so casually to enslave humanity now waited in fear to learn their own fate. High Chancellor Vorath was there, though he was no longer High Chancellor of anything. His black scales had faded to gray. His red eyes had lost their fire. He looked old and broken, like a king who had lost his kingdom, because that is exactly what he was. Ambassador Thex of the Velthery stood first. His crystal wings hung limp at his sides. When he spoke, his voice cracked like thin ice. People of Earth, he said, I come before you with shame in my heart. We looked upon your species and saw only what we could take. We did not see your art. We did not see your music. We did not see the love you have for your children. We saw only resources to be harvested. He fell to his knees, a gesture that meant surrender in his culture. I beg you for mercy. My people are not warriors. We are artists and builders. We create beauty. Without the protection of the conclave, we will be helpless against those who would prey upon us. If you destroy us, thousands of years of art and knowledge will be lost forever. Admiral Monroe looked at him with cold eyes. You did not think of that when you raised your hand to vote. You did not think of what would be lost when human cities were burned and human children were taken from their parents. Dex lowered his head. I know. There is nothing I can say that will undo what I did. I can only beg. I can only hope that you are better than we were. Ambassador Cora of the Zoroth spoke next. Her stone body moved slowly, and cracks had appeared in her face. The stress of the past months had taken a heavy toll. We were wrong, she said simply. I do not ask you to forgive us. I ask only that you do not punish our children for the sins of their parents. The young ones did not vote. They did not choose this war. Let them live. Take my life if you must, but spare the innocent." One by one, the ambassadors spoke. Each had their own plea. Some offered treasure, ancient technologies that could cure human diseases or extend human lives. Some offered territory, planets rich with resources that humans could colonize. Some offered themselves, willing to die if it would save their people. Ambassador Daniel Carter sat among the human leaders and watched it all. His face showed nothing, but inside his heart was heavy. These were the same beings who had laughed at him. These were the creatures who had called humanity animals and slaves and nothing. Now they groveled at his feet. There was no joy in this. Only sadness. High Chancellor Voreth was the last to speak. He rose from his seat with difficulty. His many legs trembled, and his claws shook. He looked like he might collapse at any moment. "I am the one who called for the vote," he said. His voice was barely a whisper. "I am the one who laughed at your ambassador. I am the one who said you were nothing. Every death in this war is my fault. Every orphan, every widow, every destroyed home, all of it is because of me." He looked at Admiral Monroe. "I do not deserve mercy. I know this. I ask only one thing. Kill me. Let my death satisfy your anger. But do not destroy the Kryn. We are an ancient people. We have made terrible mistakes, but we have also created wonders. Give us a chance to be better." He dropped to his knees, his many limbs folding beneath him. Voreth, who was High Chancellor of the Galactic Conclave. "Surrender myself to the judgment of Earth. Do with me what you will." The chamber was silent. Every eye was on Admiral Monroe. She held the power of life and death over trillions of beings. One word from her could start a genocide. One word could end civilizations that had existed before humans came down from the trees. She stood slowly and looked at the kneeling aliens before her. "You came to our world to take slaves," she said. "And now you kneel before us and beg for the very mercy you refused to show. Do you understand what that feels like? Do you understand the anger that burns in every human heart when we look at you?" She walked down from her seat, her boots echoing in the silent chamber. She stopped in front of Voreth. "I could kill you. I could order the destruction of every Kryn world. I could make your people feel what we felt when we stood alone against the galaxy." She leaned down until her face was close to his. "But I will not." "Do you know why?" Voreth shook his head. "Because that is not who we are. You judged us as animals. You thought we were simple creatures ruled by simple instincts. You were wrong. We are more than that. We have laws. We have principles. We have a dream of what the galaxy could be, a place where no species enslaves another, where every being has the right to live in freedom." She straightened up and looked at all the ambassadors. "You will not be destroyed, but you will face justice. You will be held accountable for what you did. And you will help us build a better galaxy, one where what you did to us can never happen to anyone else." Ambassador Daniel Carter finally spoke. His voice was quiet but steady. "You had a choice. You chose wrong. Now you will live with the consequences. That is justice. That is mercy. Take it or leave it." The ambassadors looked at each other. They had expected death. They had expected revenge. They had not expected this. One by one, they accepted. 1 year had passed since the vote that was meant to enslave Earth. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The old order was gone, swept away like dust in a storm. Something new had taken its place. The Terran Accord was not like the Conclave. There was no High Chancellor with absolute power. There were no votes to enslave young species. Instead, there was a council where every species, no matter how small or weak, had an equal voice. Decisions were made together. Disputes were settled with words, not weapons. And above all, there was one rule that could never be broken. No species could enslave another. Admiral Nathan Price, the man who had commanded the Defiance in the first battle, now oversaw the integration of former Conclave worlds into the new order. He stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Unity, and watched as human and alien ships worked together to repair a damaged space station. His first officer, a Velthari named Vex Jr., stood beside him. The young alien had crystal wings that sparkled in the light, just like his father's. But unlike his father, he had grown up in a galaxy where humans were not slaves, but partners. "It is strange," Vex Jr. said. "My father told me stories about humans when I was young. He said you were primitive, dangerous. He said I should never trust you." Price smiled. "And now? Now I think he was wrong about many things." The young Velthari paused. "He regrets what he did. He has not said so, but I can see it in his eyes. The vote haunts him." "It haunts many of them," Price agreed. "But regret is not enough. They must prove they have changed through their actions, not just their words." On a planet that had once been called Velthari Prime, Dr. Kevin Shaw stood before the first class of the Interspecies University. Young beings from all 12 former conclave species sat in the classroom. Along with human students who had traveled across the galaxy to study with them, history, Shaw said. "Writing the word on a board behind him is how we learn from our mistakes. Every species in this room has made terrible mistakes, humans included. We have fought wars. We have hurt each other. We have done things that shame us when we look back." He looked at his students, young faces full of curiosity and hope. "But we are here today because we chose to be better. Your parents and grandparents made choices that nearly destroyed us all. Now you have a chance to make different choices. You can be the generation that builds instead of destroys. You can be the ones who finally get it right." A young Kryn raised her hand. "Dr. Shaw, why did the humans not destroy us?" "My people voted to enslave you. We tried to take your world. You had every right to take revenge." Shaw was quiet for a moment. "Let me tell you a story. Long ago, on Earth, there were two nations that hated each other. They fought a terrible war that killed millions. One nation won. They could have destroyed the other completely. They could have taken revenge for all the deaths and suffering." He sat down on the edge of his desk. Instead, they helped rebuild what they had destroyed. They turned their enemy into an ally, and together they built something stronger than either could have built alone. That is what humans learn from our history. Revenge feels good in the moment, but it solves nothing. Building is harder than destroying, but it is the only thing that lasts. The young Kryn nodded slowly. "I think I understand." "Good," Shaw said with a smile. "Because understanding is the first step toward wisdom." On Earth, in the same chamber where the conclave ambassadors had begged for mercy, Ambassador Daniel Carter prepared to give the first annual address to the Terran Accord. He was older now, his hair completely white, but his eyes were still sharp. He had seen his species rise from the edge of enslavement to become the leaders of a new galactic order. It had been the most extraordinary year of his life. Representatives from all 13 species filled the chamber. Humans sat beside Kryn. Velthari shared tables with Zorith. Old enemies had become new partners, working together toward a future none of them could have imagined. Daniel stepped up to the podium and looked out at the crowd. "1 year ago," he began, "I stood before the Galactic Conclave and begged for mercy. I asked only that my people be left in peace. I was ignored. I was laughed at. I was told that humanity was nothing and that we would learn to serve or be destroyed." He paused. "Today, I stand before a new gathering. Not a conclave of masters deciding the fate of slaves, but an accord of equals working together for the common good. This is not what anyone expected. This is not what anyone planned. But it is what we have built together." He looked at the former conclave ambassadors, who sat in seats no higher or lower than anyone else. "You asked me once why we hid our strength. The answer is simple. We hoped we would never have to use it. We hoped that when we finally met other life in the universe, we would find friends, not masters. You took that hope from us. You made us fight when we wanted peace. You made us show our teeth when we wanted to offer our hand." His voice softened. "But we have also learned something from you. We have learned that we are not the only dreamers in the universe. Every species in this room has art, music, stories. Every species has parents who love their children and children who dream of better futures. You are not monsters. You are people who made terrible choices, just like us. He straightened his back. So here's my promise to this accord. Humanity will never forget what was done to us. We will carry that memory as a reminder of what the galaxy was and what it must never become again. But we will not let that memory turn us into the very thing we fought against. We will not enslave. We will not destroy without cause. We will build, and we will protect, and we will teach. He looked directly at the gathered representatives. If any species ever again votes to harm the innocent, humanity will remember. And we will answer, not out of revenge, but out of duty, because someone must stand guard over the weak. Someone must say that there are lines that cannot be crossed. We did not ask for this responsibility, but we will not run from it. The chamber was silent. Then, slowly, the applause began. It came from humans first, then from Velthari, then from Zorith, then from every species in the room. Even the old Kryn warriors, whose pride had been so wounded, added their voices to the chorus. Daniel Carter smiled. It was not a smile of triumph, but of hope. The galaxy had come so close to darkness, but somehow, against all odds, they had found their way to light. Outside the chamber, the sun was setting over Geneva. The sky turned orange and pink and gold. Ships from a dozen worlds flew overhead, carrying beings who had once been enemies and were now becoming friends. Children played in the streets, human and alien together, laughing at jokes that crossed the boundaries of species and language. The universe was vast and cold and often cruel. But in this small corner of space, around a small blue planet that had once been destined for slavery, something new was growing. Something fragile but beautiful. Something worth protecting. Humanity had been tested. They had not broken. And now they would help build a galaxy where no one would ever be tested that way again. That was their promise. That was their gift. That was their destiny. Our and tired eyes. Back on Earth, he had been a teacher before they chose him to speak for all of humanity. He never wanted this job. But someone had to do it, and he was the one they picked. The Galactic Conclave had existed for 10,000 years. 12 species had come together to rule the galaxy in peace. They traded with each other. They shared technology. They made laws that everyone followed. And now, for the first time in their history, they had found a new species on a small blue planet called Earth. High Chancellor Voreth sat in the largest chair. He was a Kryn, a creature that looked like a dragon crossed with a spider. His scales were black as night, and his eyes glowed red in the dim light. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the entire hall. "We have studied the humans for 50 of their years," Voreth said. "We have watched them from afar. We have learned their languages. We have seen their history. And now, we must decide what to do with them." Daniel cleared his throat. "If I may speak, High Chancellor." Voreth waved one of his many arms. "You may. My people want only peace," Daniel said. His voice was small in that huge room, but he made himself stand tall. "We did not know there was other life in the universe until your ships appeared in our skies. We are young. We are still learning. We ask only to be left alone, to grow in our own time." Sound came from the chairs around him. It took Daniel a moment to realize they were laughing. Ambassador Thex of the Velthari leaned forward. The Velthari looked like tall insects with wings of crystal. "Left alone?" Thex said. "You have nothing to offer us. Your technology is primitive. Your planet is rich with resources. And your bodies are strong and healthy. You would make excellent workers." Daniel felt cold fear spread through his chest. "Workers. Slaves," said another voice. This was Ambassador Korra of the Zoroth, a being made of what looked like living stone. "Let us not pretend. We all know why we are here. Resolution 7741 is simple. Take Earth. Use its people. Add its resources to our own." "You cannot do this," Daniel said. He could hear his own heart pounding. "We are a thinking species. We have art, we have music, we have dreams. You cannot simply take us." "High Chancellor Vorath, made a sound that might have been a sigh. Every species believes it is special when we find them. Every species begs. It does not matter. The conclave has needs, and you will serve those needs. That is the way of things. Daniel looked around the circle, searching for any sign of mercy. He found none. The 12 ambassadors looked at him the way a farmer might look at cattle. "Let us vote," Vorth said. "All in favor of Resolution 7741. The enslavement and resource extraction of the planet called Earth, raise your sign of agreement." One by one, limbs and tentacles and claws rose into the air. Daniel counted them with growing horror. 3, 5, 8, 10, 12. Every single one. "The vote is complete," Vorth announced. Resolution 7741 passes with full agreement. The humans of Earth are now property of the Galactic Conclave. Harvesting ships will be dispatched within 1 standard year. Daniel stood frozen on the platform. His mind could not accept what had just happened. In less than 5 minutes, his entire species had been condemned to slavery. 7 billion people. Every child. Every grandmother. Every dreamer and artist and scientist. All of them would be taken, used, and thrown away when they were no longer useful. "You are dismissed," Voroth said to Daniel. "Return to your planet and inform your people of our decision. Those who resist will be destroyed. Those who submit will be allowed to live as servants." Guards approached Daniel. They were Kryn soldiers, smaller than Voroth, but still terrifying. They grabbed his arms and began to drag him from the hall. "You are making a mistake," Daniel shouted. His voice cracked with anger and fear. "You do not know what we are. You do not know what we can do," Voroth laughed. The sound was like breaking glass. "I know exactly what you are. You are animals who learn to use tools. You are children playing with fire. You have no fleet. You have no weapons that can hurt us. You are nothing." They threw Daniel into a small transport ship and sealed the door behind him. Through the window, he watched Nexus Prime grow smaller as the ship carried him back toward Earth. He sat in silence for a long time. Then, slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. It looked like a simple communication unit, but it was much more than that. He typed a message using a code that only a few people on Earth knew. It made their choice. "Execute Protocol Lazarus." He pressed send. The message traveled faster than light, bouncing through hidden relay stations that the Conclave knew nothing about. It reached Earth in seconds, in a bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Admiral Lisa Monroe read the message. She was 60 years old, with silver hair cut short and eyes that had seen too much. She had spent her entire life preparing for this moment. She had hoped it would never come, but it had come. And now there was only one thing to do. She picked up a red phone and spoke 3 words that would change the history of the galaxy. Wake them up, across the planet. In hidden bases beneath deserts and mountains and oceans, machines that had slept for decades began to stir. Lights flickered on in empty halls. Engines that had never been turned on began to warm up. And the people who had been waiting, training, preparing for this very day received their orders at last. The Conclave thought they knew what humans were. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. Commander Zorath Prime stood on the bridge of his ship and looked at the blue planet. It was growing larger in the viewing screen. He had commanded 100 harvesting missions in his long life. He had taken slaves from a dozen worlds. This would be the easiest mission of all. The humans had no warships. His scouts had confirmed this many times. They had rockets that could barely reach their own moon. They had nuclear weapons, yes, but those were useless in space. They had no shields. No energy weapons. No way to fight back against the 15 Kryn battleships now entering their solar system. "Begin scanning for population centers," Zorath Prime ordered. "Find the cities with the most humans. We will start there," his crew obeyed. They were professionals. They had done this many times before. The fleet passed the outer planets of the solar system without incident. They passed the gas giants and the asteroid belt. They came closer and closer to Earth, and still nothing happened. Zorath Prime allowed himself to relax. High Chancellor Voroth had been right. The humans were nothing. Then 3 of his ships exploded. There was no warning. No incoming fire that sensors could detect. One moment, the ships were there. The next moment, there were clouds of burning metal and flesh spreading through the void of space. Report. Zoroth Prime screamed. What is attacking us? His crew scrambled over their controls. Fear filled the bridge like a bad smell. These were soldiers who had never known defeat. Now they were dying, and they did not even know why. Commander, one of his officers, said. His voice was shaking. There are ships coming from behind the moon. Zoroth Prime turned to look at the screen. What he saw made his blood turn cold. They were black ships, darker than the space around them. They moved with a grace and speed that should have been impossible. They were not the clumsy rockets his scouts had reported. They were warships. Real warships. And there were dozens of them. Impossible, Zoroth Prime whispered. Where did they come from? A voice came through his communication system. It was calm and cold and human. This is Captain Nathan Price of the Terran defense vessel Defiance. You came to our world to take our people as slaves. That was a mistake. You now have two choices. You can surrender and live. Or you can fight and die. You have 30 seconds to decide. Zoroth Prime felt rage burn through his fear. He was a Kryn commander. He did not surrender to animals. All ships attack, he ordered. Destroy them all. His remaining ships opened fire. Beams of energy shot toward the human fleet. Missiles streaked through space. It was enough firepower to destroy a small planet. The human ships simply moved out of the way. They danced between the attacks like they knew where each shot would go before it was fired. Then they fired back. Zoroth Prime watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart. The human weapons cut through Kryn shields like they were made of paper. Ships that had survived 100 battles died in seconds. Escape pods launched into space, carrying crews who hoped to survive. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, only one Kryn ship remained. It was Zoroth Prime's flagship, and it was badly damaged. Fires burned through half the decks. Most of his crew was dead. Commander, his last surviving officer, said. They are hailing us. Zoroth Prime's claws dug into his command chair. He had lost. He who had never lost had been destroyed by the very species he came to enslave. Put them through, he said. Captain Nathan Price appeared on the screen. He was a human male with brown skin and gray hair. He wore a uniform that was simple, but clean. His eyes held no mercy. I am sparing your ship, Price said. Not because you deserve mercy, but because I need you to deliver a message to your conclave. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that the humans are not the prey they believed us to be. Tell them that every species who voted to enslave us has made an enemy today. You will be destroyed, Zoroth Prime said. His voice was weak and broken. The full power of the conclave will crush you. Many have tried to crush us, Price replied. We are still here. They are not. Go home, Commander. Tell your masters what you saw, and tell them that we remember the vote. The communication ended. Zoroth Prime sat in silence as his damaged ship slowly turned away from Earth. He looked back at the blue planet one more time. It looked so peaceful, so harmless, but now he knew the truth. That peaceful blue planet was home to monsters. The conclave had poked a sleeping beast, and now that beast was awake, back on the Defiance. Captain Nathan Price stood on his bridge and watched the Kryn ship limp away. His crew was silent. They had just won their first battle against an alien enemy. They should have been celebrating. Instead, they understood what this victory meant. Sir, his first officer said. She was a young woman named Rachel with red hair and sharp eyes. What do we do now? Price took a deep breath. Now we prepare. The conclave will send more ships. Bigger ships. They will not make the same mistake twice. Can we win? Price looked at his crew. They were young, most of them. They had trained their whole lives for this day in secret bases hidden around the world. They had kept the biggest secret in human history. And now they would have to fight a war against enemies they barely understood. I do not know if we can win, Price said honestly. But I know that we will fight. Our ancestors survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. They survived because they never gave up. We are their children, and we do not give up either. Turn back to the viewing screen. Earth hung there, blue and green and beautiful. His home, his people, everything he loved. Send a message to Admiral Monroe, he ordered. Tell her the first battle is won. Tell her to begin Phase 2. On Earth, in bunkers and bases all around the world, humans who had waited their whole lives for this moment began to move. Ships launched from hidden hangars. Soldiers put on armor that had been tested but never used in real combat. Scientists opened files that had been classified for decades. The galaxy had decided to enslave Earth. Now Earth would show the galaxy what a terrible mistake that was. The war had begun, and humanity intended to win.